Listen to the Vibes.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Listen to the Vibes. And I'm very happy to welcome Cathlene Miner here. Now, she is a CEO and founder of Hopefull Handbags, a best-selling author, women's fitness expert, podcaster, and so much, much more. So we're going to get to know her, and let's kick us off right. Tell us a little bit more about yourself.
Well, like you said, my name is Cathlene Miner. I have 4 children and I have 3 grandchildren now. I love it. I absolutely love it. It is everything that I've heard that it was, meaning, you get to spoil them, you get to have fun, you get to, have a hand in raising them, but you're not raising them. So you can let a few things go, things like that. So that's really fun. And I have my hands in lots of different things. And I think that as we get older, I'm 51 now, soon to be 52. And some of the things that I'm even doing now, I never thought I would be doing. And our list, like you said, in many more things, right? It doesn't get longer the older we get. It's just like the one little sentence used to be able to cover what we did. And now, sometimes you just leave things out because you're like, well, that was another lifetime ago. I don't even need to talk about that anymore. And that's where I am. So as you said, I founded an organization called Hopefull Handbags Global, where we assist survivors of domestic abuse and their children. Number 1, to get to safety. Number 2 is and 3, 4, and 5, 6 is well-being, health, wellness, and long-term sustainability, which is really important, right? We have to be able to support ourselves or it's not going to work. It doesn't matter who you are. And that organization I started in 2017. I started that because my mom grew up in a very abusive home. And my grandfather not only abused my grandmother, but all of the children. And there were lots of children. And we lived across the street from my grandparents when I was younger. And as I got older, I realized why. My mom was kind of in the middle of those ages. I had aunts and uncles that were mine and my sister's age, and she was there to protect everybody. And that's why she was there. Even though she tried to keep my sister and I from seeing what was going on, we knew what was going on because my aunt and uncle would come across the street. So it always stuck with me as to why do people stay in relationships like this? Because it's not just physical abuse, mental, financial. There's so many different kinds of abuses. So that's why I started that organization, was in memory of my grandmother who passed away. Gosh, it's got to have been 35 years ago now, of a brain injury, which I think you can only get hit so many times. But that's the passion behind it. And it's so great because now, like we were talking about before, with the power of the internet, we can literally help people globally. So even, right. I'm based here in Florida. Florida is where I live, and in the US, but we have so many different things going on around the world. So yeah, there's so much more, but that's the base of Hopefull Handbags and what we do.
What are you finding is the main reason why women will stay in a relationship like that? Because I've heard different theories about it.
Yeah. Well, it all really comes down to power and control of the other person, right? The other person wants to have power and control over somebody. And yes, statistically, it is women. It does happen to men as well, but statistically, it's women. And for a lack of a better word, as my mom always puts it so great, they're brainwashed. They are literally and figuratively beaten down to where they don't think they can get any better. And a lot of the times the tables are turned in those situations where the abuser is making the survivor, as we call them, because they are, at least if we can get them out, they'll survive. The survivor feels like it's their fault. They're guilty. Oh, if I could only do this better, or I shouldn't have done that, and then that wouldn't have happened. And that's the way an abuser will start to manipulate the situation, right? Because abusers are just really great manipulators. And people like my grandfather and all the others that I see and work with is that an abuser doesn't look like an abuser from outsiders, right? They're usually those upstanding citizens that people would be really shocked. And unfortunately, behind closed doors, it's a whole nother world. So why do they stay? They stay because they feel like they can't go anywhere else. They either can't get anything any better, which we know that's not true. Financially, they're stuck. because even if they're making the money, typically somebody that's being abused, whether it's physical, mental, or financial, they don't have control over all of the money. And so even if they're bringing it in, doesn't mean they can just leave. A lot of times if there's children, the children are being used as threats, right? This is what's going to happen to the kids. Every situation is different. And, I went and got certified to be a domestic abuse advocate with that question on my mind. That was why I went. Why do people stay? And the first thing I learned was there is no one reason, because even though there's that commonality of some type of abuse, there is not one reason, because every single situation is so different. Mm-hmm. So it's really about power and control on the abuser's part. And they typically will have like a narcissist type personality.
Yes.
And unfortunately, when you get survivors out of abusive situations, that abuser most of the time will just go on to somebody else.
Strangely enough, a lot of women will stay because they think that because this person is like abusive, but they're protective of them as well. It's hard to believe that someone would think that way.
But you've got it, because that's what the abuser is showing. The abuser is showing that, you know what, I'm going to protect you from everybody else. Like I'm doing this for your own good. And that's where the isolation comes in, right? They start to separate them slowly from friends, slowly from family, so that then the survivor starts to believe this is the only person that can help me. And then since they look so amazing from the outside world, even the survivor's family sometimes doesn't believe it. And then there's the tables are turned, right? Where you'll have family members that do see what's going on, but that person is so manipulated and brainwashed from the abuser that they're not seeing what's going on anymore. They think the family and the friends are the bad guys. But yeah, that's the way they work it. I see it all the time.
What was your relationship like with your grandfather before you realized, and then of course afterwards?
Yeah, it was, when I was little, my mom would never, and I never really realized this until I got older, would never leave my sister and I alone with my grandfather. It was never happened. And we really didn't see him that much, because even though he lived there, he wasn't there very much. And if he was, it was not good. So we were mainly kind of kept from him. Now, as we got older and we started realizing what happened after my grandmother passed away, years after that, my grandfather, stopped drinking, realized what he did was wrong. And my relationship with him, knowing what I already knew, was okay. My mom was getting to a point where she knew that, not that she would ever forgive the things that happened, but knew that for herself, she had to let go of some stuff. So we did have a relationship with him. My kids had a relationship with my grandfather before he passed away. He lived a long time. He just passed away probably about 9 years ago, maybe. But he never showed that. He was never like that to his grandkids, which I was one of his grandkids, or the great grandkids. They didn't know any of that about him. Obviously they know now just because of what I'm doing. But that's not the side of him that he showed, which is good, because, he did change. And even when he got sick, excuse me, my mom is the one that took care of him.
Wow.
And so it's just, yeah, it was one of those things, like she said, I've got to do this for myself. And anytime he would try to say something smart, I just remember being there and she'd be like, oh, listen, I'm trying to help you, but, there's other places I could send you to. Right. So there was that kind of a relationship. But, like I said, the outside world he looked like he was an upstanding guy, like the kind of guy that makes his bed perfectly, like the military, every day, right? And when he walked outside, he always had a pair of khakis on. He had his belt was, the button down shirt, like looked all put together. So you would have never thought.
It's that disguise, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
And you're a best-selling author.
Well, so I wrote a book. I've written a couple books, but the one is called The 30-Day Self-Perception Makeover. And I wrote that just from my own beginnings of trying to figure out, like we hear these days, this was before like, you know, I guess mental health and really well-being was a cool thing. And even though it's very important, I'm not just saying it's cool. It's just, I didn't hear many people talking about it. And I know for myself, I realized that my self-perception meant everything. What I thought and felt about myself was dictating the chances I was taking, the choices I was making, the relationships I was staying in, and the ones that I was leaving, whether they were professional or personal, because I was like, okay, no, this isn't working for me. And so when I started to work on myself, I started to realize and notice the things around me changing. So I probably started doing that when I was about 21. And so the base of what I wrote this book on was things that I did for myself and started putting it in and including it with my clients. So as a second job, so there was a time in my life where I was a single mom of 2 children. And so I worked full time at Mayo Clinic, which you're in the US, you might have heard of Mayo Clinic. And I worked my way up the ladder there. It was awesome. So I had a job. I was cleaning houses on the weekends. And then I was personal training and teaching aerobics after work because I still had to make ends meet, right? I mean, I had kids, I had to pay for a house and all this other stuff. So what I started doing was with my personal training clients, working in what I was working on with myself, which was self-perception, basically what I think and feel about myself. And I started noticing too, just as I did in myself, that the clients were changing as well, right? Like their perception of themselves was changing, which meant that the work that they were doing on their physical body was starting to change along with what was changing up in their head about themselves. So it got to the point where it wasn't even about how much they weighed anymore. It wasn't about, I mean, they wanted to take care of themselves, right? Because you have to, what you put in, I mean, there's a lot of aspects to that. But their mindset started to change and they became happier people, just as I was becoming a happier person, right? So that is what the book is based on. I am not a huge reader. I'll be honest with you. I love magazine articles. Like I love the short, sweet, like blogs, articles, give me the point and I'm there. So I wrote the book in days, which means that's why it's 30 days, right? So each day is like a page and a half or 2.5 pages, depending on the day. And then there's a call to action and something that you do every day. And I personally do that every 6 months. So I do my own book every 6 months. And it kind of brings me back, right? Because the outside world, I don't care who you are, the outside world will start to dictate what you're thinking. Even you can put a bubble up, you can do whatever you want, especially now with social media and what we have to be on it, right? I mean, everything we do now, you got to look it up on the computer and we're bombarded with this stuff. So it starts to download on us. So it's a way to reset. It's a way to reset because we will start to think differently about ourselves, not needing to, but it's subconscious. A lot of the times it's subconscious until we start to look around, at least for me and what I've seen with the people that have done the program over and over and my clients is you start to look around and say, you know what? These things, like this has been too long that things aren't going the way that I was hoping they would go. And whenever that starts to happen with me, I look inwards. I'm like, oh, okay, Kath, what are you doing? What are you thinking? What are you not thinking about? What kind of things do I need to start changing? Because I can't expect anybody else to change. Nobody else is going to change and make me happy. It has to happen with me. Now, there could be some people maybe that I look around and I'm like, yeah, they're kind of negative Nellies. So I probably need to back off a little bit with that because I can tell it's affecting me. So that is what that book is about. I also wrote a teen version of that book and it's really fun. And I did that because, listen, most teenagers, I know back at least even when I was a teenager and there was not the internet, right? We did not have cell phones. We had magazines. And that really started to affect me. I did have an eating disorder when I was in high school. And I wrote that book for the teens so that the earlier we can learn these little tips and tricks. And hey, we know teenagers. we know they're not going to listen to everything we say. But my thought is it's in there somewhere, right? It's like it's in there that one day they'll be like, oh, wait, I think something just clicked. That was the point for that book.
Well, something that I've noticed, like for myself and a lot of people, we're very critical of ourselves. You can look at someone else who may have the same body type, might even act like you, and you'll think it's okay for them, but it's not okay for myself. Why are we so hard on ourselves? And why are we why is it so hard for us to even forgive ourselves?
Because it takes work. It takes work. And that's why so many people, I don't know if you see this too, but since there's so much out there in the industry of coaching and mentoring, I personally see it all the time where people are trying to help other people when they need to be helping themselves, right? Because it helps, it makes you feel good because you can see results in other people. Right. It's hard to look inwards and make changes because if it wasn't, everybody would be feeling good. Right. But it takes work. And not everybody's willing to put in that work. And I'm not saying it happens overnight. It's something that we have to work on every day, but it's simple things too, like the comparison. Yes. We've all probably at some point compared ourselves to somebody and said, oh my gosh, if only I was like that, then I would be happy. But what I started to flip that is, oh my gosh, like if they can do it, I can do it. If they can do it, I can do it. So it's really just a shift in your mindset of the same thing. I'm not saying that person, like I look up to that person because they're doing that. I'm not jealous of them. However, like what you just asked, that comes into almost like a jealousy thing, right? Because you're like, I mean, it's okay for them, but I'm never going to get it, or I'm never going to look that way or feel that way. And so many people do feel that way. And I'm guilty of it of myself, especially in the past. And not that nobody's perfect, but I will tell you that it triggers something in me whenever, I mean, it doesn't even come to my mind anymore because I'm just like, if they can do that, I can do that. And then in the process of that journey of me trying to do whatever it is, I typically find something that falls into place for me better. And then I feel even better about it. But it's hard. That's why people are hard on themselves and they're not willing to put in the work. I mean, it just is what it is. I can't sugarcoat it because, even when I was doing mentoring and coaching, people want to fix like that. Mm-hmm. They want you to give them a magic pill, and sometimes they're pills, or sometimes, I mean, I don't give pills, but sometimes that's what people are looking for. Or they're looking for one. Okay, you say this is going to work. How come I don't feel better now? Like this is only, well, it's been like a week. So you got to put some more time in.
So what do you start with, daily affirmations, or how do you tell people? Well,
daily affirmations. So I'm glad you asked about that. So I love daily affirmations. However, I think that they need to be catered to the person, right? Because you got to feel what it is. So I always say, first, you got to know what you don't want in order to know what you do want. So if you ask somebody, what is it that you really want in this life? 9 times out of 10, they have to think about it. They don't know because they don't really know. They say all these things, but when it comes down to it, they don't know. But if you ask somebody, what do you not want? Well, I don't want to be sick. I don't want to not have enough money. All these things you don't want. Well, then you can start making affirmations, because if you know what you don't want, you can start turning those around. And I call them changeover statements. And then we change over those statements to make it as to what it is you are looking for. And then I totally believe in, like your podcast, right? The vibes. Like I am so a vibing person. I feel like whatever we put out there, we're putting out there into the world. So we get to choose that. And I'm not saying every day is going to be perfect, but we get to choose that. So if we start to realize what we don't want, and then we change it into what we do desire, then we're putting it out there that way, right? Mm-hmm. We're putting it out there. Same with people that want to lose weight. I don't want to be overweight because that's unhealthy, right? That kind of goes with the healthy part. I am excited to be vibrant and healthy and be able to keep up with my grandkids. I mean, that's an affirmation. And that is a unique affirmation for me personally, even. And it could pertain to some other people too, but it's truly something that as I get older, and I always say wiser, I do. I hope you do too. And I say that because I'm like, I have learned so much even since yesterday. Like, yeah. I can't not be wiser. I'm learning every single day. So I do start with that. There's another thing of looking at yourself in the mirror, complimenting yourself every single day. And if you can't find anything, look at your eyes. I mean, how many times do we look at our eyes? Our eyes are absolutely amazing if we really look at them, and a lot of people don't. The first thing we look at in the mirror is the flaws that we think we have. And like, it goes back to criticizing ourselves. I mean, innately, as humans, we are kind of trained that way as we grow up. Not that our parents or our grandparents or our guardians or our teachers are wanting us to. It's just the way people are. It's the way we're built inside. So we have to do the opposite.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. I know exactly what you mean. First thing I do when I look in the mirror in the morning is, what's wrong? You know, when you look into someone's eyes, and I know this was said in a movie, but it's true. The eyes don't lie.
No, they don't. No, they don't.
It's how I could always tell when somebody really liked me. I could look them straight in the eyes. People don't look at each other straight in the eyes anymore.
They don't. And I was raised to do that. So
right.
I have amazing parents. Actually, I will say my mom and dad were married. My mom was 15 and my dad was 17. She had me when she was 15, and they're still together. They are just the most amazing people. But my dad would always say, always look people in the eyes when you're talking to them. And even when I pass people, to this day, I make eye contact and say hello.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes you get that. Okay. But they don't do it as much as they should. And I think some of it has to do with also this, right? This is where we are. This is where a lot of relationships are taking place, is online. And some of it isn't even with, like, you and I can sit here and see each other, but that's not happening all the time. I know of some teens that their total relationship happens in messaging. Yeah. And that's a problem. Unfortunately, I think that's going to be a problem down the road for everybody.
Oh my gosh, some people can't leave the house without having the phone in their hand.
Right. Absolutely. And I have to say, for me personally, I've gotten to the point where I do have my phone with me. And if I don't, I feel like, oh my gosh, like, what if one of my kids call me? What if, like, but so I don't know what the happy medium to that is. You know what I mean? But I will say, I do keep my ringer off. I always have my ringer off. And I will check my phone periodically. And I think if I didn't, if I wasn't looking out for my kids, I probably wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, something that I started doing, and by no means do I think I'm better than anybody else, but if we're leaving and I'm down the street and I notice, oh, I left my phone at home, my wife will say, well, do you want me to go back and get it? I'm like, no, if it's that important, somebody needs to get a hold of me, they can call your phone.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. And actually, we do the same thing. So if my husband and I are out, we know that if somebody in the family really needs something, they know if they call one and don't get it, they're going to call the other.
Exactly.
And that's fine. We don't need two phones. We just need to make sure they're going to be able to find us if they need to. But so many people are living that way with relationships. And I helped run and organize an event here last year that had to do with, it was mental health for teens, but I was in charge of the parents portion of it. And, that is our first line of defense, right? Is our parents when it comes to teenagers. And so many of them say, like, these kids' relationships are online. And some topics came up that aren't easy to talk about, like suicide and things like that, and that things that are happening, and they're all happening because we can't see people. Like you say, the eyes tell you a lot, right? So if somebody's texting somebody and saying, you know what, I don't want to go out with you anymore. I don't want any of that. Well, they don't know how that's perceived, right? Because they're not really feeling what that person's saying. When I'm talking to you and you're talking to me, I can hear the tone in your voice. I can hear there's so much that I can tell whether you're being sincere or whether you're mad or whether you're happy or, I can tell, but you can't tell that on a text. And that is what's causing a lot of issues with preteen and teenagers and some of the things that are going on within their relationships, which, I mean, talk about then possibly getting into an abusive situation when they're trying to have an in-person relationship. They don't know how to act in an in-person relationship anymore. I used to have the thought, because my kids are 31, 29, I have to think about this, 19 and 18. And all of them are out of high school, either married with kids or in college. And I used to think when my kids were in high school, I never encouraged anybody to have a boyfriend or girlfriend. I mean, I was just like, we got plenty of time for that. But these days, I'm wondering if it's not a good idea. And I mean, I will be honest and say that, just because then they have to talk to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Then we have to have people talk to each other, right? Right. I mean, I don't know. It's just funny how as you get a little older, you start thinking about things differently. I'm like, I don't know. Like, it'd be nice for them to actually be able to physically talk to somebody and see somebody instead of just messaging.
Right. Well, a lot of the business that I do is through emails and text messages and things like that. And it's funny that you'd mentioned it, because in my head, I know the tone that I'm speaking in, and I'll send a message and then I'll go back and I'll read it after I've already sent it and go, oh my gosh, I hope they know what I mean when I say this, that I'm not trying to be a jerk, or, this is just in jest. But you can't tell what the tone is just by, you have to really spell it out to get the tone of what the person's trying to say. That's going to be a big problem in the future.
and you do. And I think that's the great thing about emails. It's the great thing about texting, that we have it because it can be quick, easy. But when people's whole relationships are built on something like that, that's, I think, I guess what I'm thinking too is that we have to teach our kids, right? The kids and the teenagers and the preteens, like, they need to be able to communicate with humans.
Right.
And I think a little bit of the virtual world is great. I mean, it's here. It is what it is. We're going to embrace it, do what you can with it. But that being able to communicate with humans is huge. There's no replacement for that.
Exactly. Well, real quick, you have a podcast? Is that what
I did have a podcast, and then I got super busy, and how much, and so I have not been doing it. However, I will say, so I joined in with a friend of mine, and we created a new social networking platform, speaking of internet and social media, and also a video and content monetizing platform. So we're going to go on and we're going to be talking a little bit more about that. And like I said at the beginning, like, there's things as you get older, you never thought you'd really do. If you would have asked me this 4 years ago, or, I don't even know what you're talking about. Like, I don't see myself. No, because I'm not a huge social media lover. I'll be honest, I'm not, but I am really concerned about our kids. I'm very concerned about our kids. So when we decided we started really because business owners, right? We deal with a lot of business owners, and we'd like to be able to have them highlight their stuff. So within the new social media platform, it's called ZZ Adam. They can do blogs. Now, our blogs are very high reaching on search engine optimization. So it's a no brainer, right? Stick your blog over there, share it out. You're going to get a lot of views on it. So that's really the base of it, even though it's within a social media platform. And vanishing notes, which is call to actions on specials, things like that. But then from there, like, okay, well, what do we do for our video content people? Like, what do we do for our course creators? What do we do for those people that are kind of getting lost in a sea of just stuff, right? Because YouTube is great. It's hard to monetize on YouTube. There's so many things that you have to do to monetize on YouTube. And unfortunately, it's not the percentage isn't huge of the people that are able to monetize. And so then you have platforms like the course creating platforms, which are great, but they take so much of a commission. And then you've got things like OnlyFans. And OnlyFans is great when it comes to how it's structured, right? You make your price, you do what you're going to do. Okay. And to each his own. That's the way I feel about, whatever content you put out there. If nobody's forcing you to do it, it is what it is. You do what you want to do. But the problem is with that is that the platform, unfortunately, is being mainly known for adult content. Not that that's all what's over there, but that is their top 1%. So when you log on, that's what you see because they show the top 1%. So what we did was we created a video monetizing platform where we have separated out any mature content from any mainstream content. Now, you do have to be 18 and older to post on that site anyway, verify creators. But I was really adamant about separating that out because I really want to give the voice for the mainstream entrepreneurs, meaning, and I use that word kind of loosely, right? It's just people that don't have mature content on there, right? So that they're not getting mixed in the sea of that. And then we separated it out to a mature spot where, hey, they can knock themselves out over there. It's great. Do what you want to do, but it's not going to be mixed in with the mainstream stuff, which is going to maybe affect who's being seen on those platforms. That's called ZZ Fans. But so yeah, that's my I've been doing that, and we're going to start podcasting and really doing video things like this, which I can't wait to hear what you have to say about it once you check it out, so you can come over there and I can interview you about what your thoughts are on these types of things. But I'm passionate about this too because of the way I feel about our kids are seeing a lot as it is. And so I really don't want this stuff being mixed. We got to create things where we're separating things out because the things these kids are talking about in middle school these days, I don't even think I knew about it in high school. Like, I don't even think I was probably a senior in high school and you could tell me some of this stuff and I would have looked at you like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah. Well, and I hope I don't sound like I'm whining here, but with YouTube, I watch YouTube most of the time, and there's a lot of great content on there, but there's stuff like what I do that doesn't really get pushed on YouTube.
Right.
And I have interviewed people that do stuff that's kind of similar to what I do, but they're more focused on certain aspects of whether it's mental health, physical health, what have you. And it's great stuff, but it's just not something you're going to pull up and that's going to be in your suggested feed. You have to be subscribed basically to get it,
Right. And we wanted creators like yourself. So I can't wait to see you over there. Creators like yourself that want to monetize or show, right? So you could have things for free. You can monetize it. You could have a subscription channel. You could have not a subscription channel. And on our suggested feed, which is something really important to us, we rotate everybody evenly. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how many followers you have or how many likes or whatever. That doesn't matter. We're doing everybody evenly. So we're just started building that platform. And again, like you said, I think YouTube's great too. I mean, I can probably build a house because I can go to YouTube and look it up and it will show me step by step. Like, we can find anything out there, but it's also being mixed in too with kids stuff. And it's being mixed in with, like you said, it's lost out there. And I think there's certain things that are popular within cultures poor countries. I don't know which word to use for that, but that are being shown more than others because of what people are talking about. And I see that on the mainstream social media pages as well. And that was another reason why we decided, you know what, let's do the blogs and the vanishing notes into another social networking platform. So at least that's there. But then we've got the other aspect of it, because I mean, we need some vibes out there. Like you said, like we need some good vibes going on out there and people sharing what people are doing that is good. I don't watch the news anymore, but when you turn it on, I mean, I remember back in the day, and even if I bring up my Google Mail, right? What's the first thing, or AOL, that comes up? Is all the things that are not going right in the world.
That's true.
And I could talk about the mindset. I try to like push. I'm not oblivious. I know what's going on, but I don't need to dig into it. Plus, it's all opinions. It's all opinions.
Yeah. Used to, the news just gave you the news, and now it's their opinion. I don't care which side of the aisle you're on. I just want to know what happened.
That's right. Just tell me what happened. I'll decide for myself, and I'll probably just move on. Just like, as long as we can keep ourselves safe, that's my goal. That's the only reason why I need to know what's going on.
I mean, easily, if I picked a topic and spoke on it, whatever's popular right now, then I'd get some more views. But that's not what I'm trying to push,
Right.
I want some positivity out there, and I bring people like you on that can inspire other people, or they say, "Oh, I'm interested in what they have to say. Let me go to their website, or let me go to your social media and check it out." And it can help somebody other than, well, this is what the president did today, and this is what the press secretary did today. I don't care,
Right. Yeah, we're too busy for that. We got to deal with what we got going on around us. But I love what you do, and I appreciate it, because it takes people like you being consistent at this so that we can make that positivity the thing that we're all thinking about, and not the first thing on our mind, which goes back to the self-perception stuff, right? Everything, there's so much around us that's not positive. So we have people like you helps us to be able to change that faster than us having to switch it ourselves, which is hard to do for ourselves.
Do you have a website?
I do. It's called KathleenMiner.com.
Okay.
Yep. And then Hopefull Handbags also has a site, hopefullhandbags.org. And then the other platforms that I talked about, ZZ Fans and ZZ Adam, they're live. ZZ Adam has an app. Okay. So, yeah.
Can you send me all the links?
I will. Yes, okay. I definitely will.
I will add all the links in the description to make it easier for people to find you. And what about your social media?
Yes. So I was talking about the fitness stuff. I have Instagram. I'm Cathlene Fit. And also on ZZ Adam, I've got Cathlene Fit. And then Cathlene Miner on the rest of them. I try to keep it simple. And, I'm not on social media a ton. I mean, I am. And same with LinkedIn. I'm Cathlene Miner. Because it's busy in the world. So I like to be out in the real world. I'll post things if it needs to be posted, and, do the things that I need to do. But let's just be real. Social media these days is the best way to reach people.
It's true.
It's the best way. Cause I mean, I don't know about where you are, but I mean, like, the newspapers aren't even something that's a real thing anymore. So, I mean, and if they were, I don't know if I'd believe what they said anyway. So, like, I just don't get one.
I hear you.
So,
Cathlene, thank you so much for being on my show today.
Well, thank you for having me. I've been excited about this since we chatted.
Well, I appreciate it. And I also want to thank all you folks out there. If you are new to the channel, well, I hope you'll come back. Hit that subscribe button. From our regulars, you guys are awesome because you make it possible for me to do this. And until the next one, everyone, please take care. Be kind to one another. God bless and peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Listen to the Vibes. You can catch us on Buzzsprout or wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts, and on YouTube. Follow us on Facebook at The Vibes Broadcast Network